Hello, everybody. Welcome to Religion Love, where we passionately debate, explore, and review topics about religion, science, history, and current events. Um,
Ooh,
let's see,
I'm gonna
Joey,
fall off
how are
my
you
chair.
doing?
I'm doing good if I could
Are
balance
you
myself
good?
from my chair.
Don't fall off. Don't
I
fall off
know.
the stream, please.
Hey, it's good to see everybody
Like,
back for our second show. Well, not our second show, but our second show since we've kind of
after
been
the break.
back from the break.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You've been doing good. Your birthday's coming up.
Oh,
What
don't
is your
remind me
birthday?
about that. But I'm excited about eating for my birthday, but not for the age thing. So yeah.
Good point. Good point. So we have a pretty good topic to talk about today. I mean, we have talked about this topic in the past. We had objectively Dan, given his perspective on veganism and what it's like to be vegan, what we could expect from the world if we all became vegan. But it's a really controversial one. Okay, I I don't know why it is that when someone mentions the word vegan, the reaction can be anything from eye rolls to chokes to anger. Why is it that compassion is something that we admire in other people's is treated as something extreme when it extends beyond their own species? And I will think that in the atheist community, especially, where we spend a lot of time questioning traditions and challenging authority, searching for evidence and ethical consistency, like why is it that for many of us, myself included, there's like this strange blind spot, like when it comes to the way we treat animals? Um, you know, these are sentient beings who, by every definition of science, are also just as capable of suffering as we are. So today we're going to explore this topic of veganism as a conversation about critical thinking, empathy, and ethics. And we have a special guest that's going to help us answer some really hard questions and confront very uncomfortable truths. At times, they might get a little uncomfortable, not gonna lie. But let's see how opening our minds to animal welfare can deepen and not weaken our commitment to reason and compassion. So, joining us today is a very outspoken vegan who is often challenges other atheists in the atheist spaces. And here it is, Chase Avior. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Hey, welcome.
How
Hey,
are you
thanks for
doing?
having me. I
Good.
appreciate it. Be a good time.
Awesome, awesome. So we met through, like many of these atheist spaces. I think the first time I came across you was on one phone call that you made to one of the shows. I think it was Made Me Atheist Experience or one of those. Uh, and you always have something really challenging to say to people, and I really like that though, because I feel like even though we are in a space where people talk a lot about reason and critical thinking, there's always that one extra step that we can take. So let's see how. Tell me a little bit more about yourself. Like how long, like first of all, like where can people find you other than here?
Sure. So, yeah, Chase Avier on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. And yeah, I've been vegan for 14 years. And I was vegetarian for a year before that. Um, and yeah, no regrets. Just the only regret is that I didn't do it sooner.
That's good. That's good. And what sparks that? Like, what would you say made you go from vegetarian to vegan?
Well, first I'll tell you how I went from eating animals to
Mm.
vegetarian. I did that
Sure.
overnight for the animals because I saw this movie District 9, which is actually a science fiction movie about aliens crash landing on Earth. Like they have a sickness and they have this, they're like vulnerable and ill. And so the humans in the movie exploit the aliens' vulnerability and abuse the power that the humans have over the aliens and put them in these ghetto camps and run painful experiments on them and you know just otherize them just because the aliens weren't human. And
Oh, okay.
but the aliens didn't mean us any harm. They just look different and they sound different, and they're not from here. And so but it got me thinking about and then like in the movie, one of the, spoiler alert, but like the main,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, it's from 2009, so you probably should have seen it by now. But in District
I
9,
haven't, but it
like,
sounds cool.
yeah, one of the characters starts to become like, he gets infected by something and starts to become one of the aliens, and like his hand starts to become a claw. And so he starts getting hunted. Like, he was at first hunting the aliens, but now he's starting to get hunted by other humans because he's
Because
becoming an alien.
oh,
And so the oppressor becomes the oppressed, right? And so it flips it on its head and gives me this perspective, and helped me started thinking about discrimination and like racism and sexism, but discrimination in general. But I didn't make the connection to um animals until the next day when I was eating a steak, and I just looked down, and I realized I'm cutting into the flesh of someone who wanted to live.
mhm.
Like these animals are individuals, conscious, sentient beings who care how they're treated. Just and I'm like, I'm nice to my dog. Why am I paying someone to stab a cow? This doesn't make any sense. I'm being hypocritical. I felt like a racist, to be honest with you. And it's called speciesism, discrimination.
Species, I've heard of that
Speciesism.
term.
Wow,
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
never heard that before.
Yeah,
Okay.
just discrimination based on speciesism. And it's everywhere in our society. We do it 3 times a day with our eating habits. We just don't think about it because it's not an issue that's discussed in society very much. And so it's important for us to talk about this, and there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. And we'll get into different tactics of activism in a minute. But
Yeah,
so
yeah, for sure.
that's so I don't know if you want to stop me before I go on to like how I went from vegetarian to vegan is a different
Uh,
story.
I do have a question about that because you were talking about speciesism, and I think sometimes that's something that I've been thinking about lately, and I realized that throughout. Well, I was raised atheist at first, and then I became religious, and then I deconverted again to atheism. But even though my mom, she loved animals, loved animals. Okay, like everybody says that, but like we have this hierarchy of different animals, right? Like domesticated pets are like right below humans, and then we have the ones that we eat, and then the ones in the wild and all that. But I feel that I deconstructed different parts of religion throughout the years, and the one that I'm currently working on is this one where we see animals as I'm sorry, we see humans as being above other animals, and I really think a lot of that comes from religion and like people believing that humans were created directly by God and all of that, and that animals were created to be utilized by
Yep.
humans. So my question to you was like, were you ever religious? Did you
Yeah.
you were
Yeah, I was raised Christian, and uh, kind of rebelled against God, but still believed in Him in my teenage years,
mhm,
because I was heavily conditioned, but angry at Him because I saw all the suffering that I had to go through and the suffering in the world, and couldn't make sense of it. And I just didn't like organized religion and all the rules and strictness and everything. I was, more of a free spirit, if you will. And but then in my 20s, I ended up in jail for selling mushrooms, and I kind of came back to God, like had uh, an awakening in jail at my, just because I was at my lowest point in life, and I was super depressed and lonely, and my bipolar was kicking in, and so I started like thinking, that I wasn't able to pick myself up, and so I reached out to this God that I had been told existed. I'd been told all my life, like, you need to reach out to God and He'll save you, and so I did, and it was the Christian God, of course, and just by proximity, and it felt good. Like, I felt like I was saved and stuff. And um then I read more of the Bible and was like, ew, ew, no, wait a minute. Because, like,
I don't remember this part.
yeah, yeah, they didn't teach us this in Sunday school. So, the slavery and the killing of the gay people and subjugation of women and all this stuff. So, and the contradictions, all the contradictions that are in there was a big, easy way for me to leave Christianity after just a couple years and in my early 20s. But I stayed religious or I stayed a theist for another like 5 years or so till I was about 30. I'm 42 now. So I've been an atheist for about like 12 years or so.
Okay, so you first became vegan and then atheist. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And the reason I became a full atheist was because of the problem of suffering, and specifically the problem of wild animal suffering. Because, like, you could maybe make some kind of an argument about free will, like humans having free will and us messing everything up. And that's why we have factory farms and slaughterhouses. But what about the wild animals? Like, most baby animals that are born in the wild die as babies because they get, eaten alive by predators, or they starve to death, or they freeze to death. And if I was a god, I just wouldn't make a world like this.
Yeah, like why would you make a world where you have to kill another living being to stay alive? Even wild animals themselves. I
Yeah,
think a perfect God could have created animals that were all herbivores.
exactly.
So, and that we all had enough plants for all of us to survive on.
Yeah.
So, anyways, you told me that the movie that you watched made you become a vegetarian. Was that correct?
Yeah, and
And then
and it
there
made me
was
become it
yes.
made me become like an animal rights activist. Because I started talking to people right afterwards about my transformation with that, but I wasn't super active until I saw footage of factory farms and slaughterhouses, and a year later. And then that really, like traumatized me and made me sad and enraged. And that motivated me to do activism. But before, I think maybe before that, like the way that I went from vegetarian to vegan, was somebody, like I was working in a restaurant as a vegetarian. I was working in a meat selling restaurant as a waiter, and I felt bad about that, but I kind of, was just suffering for employment, doing what I kind of needed to do. But also at the same time, I didn't have the proper motivation behind my vegetarianism or my animal rights ideology yet to abstain from working somewhere where I had to sell animal corpses, because like I didn't have to work there technically. It was just easy, you know. So but anyways, a vegan customer came in, and I told her, "Hey, I noticed you didn't order any meat. Like, are you a vegetarian?" And she said, "I'm vegan." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool. I'm vegetarian. I've been," and she's like, "That's cool. How, why are you vegetarian?" And I said, "For the animals." And she said, "Well, all the animals are still killed for dairy and eggs, and it's all the same animals." And I was like, "Oh, dang, I guess you're
I
right."
hadn't thought
I
about
hadn't
that.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, I hadn't really thought about it, and so the next day I just went vegan overnight, just like I went vegetarian overnight. And I didn't know what I was going to eat, just like with going vegetarian. I was like, I guess I'll just get beans instead of beef at this restaurant, because that's all they have or whatever. And beans are good, they're healthy. And with going vegan, I had a first date with somebody the next day, and we went to a rest or a coffee place, and I was like, "Do you have an alternative to milk?" And they were like, "Yeah, we have soy milk." And I was like, "Really? Okay." This was, back in
Not
2010,
that hard.
so there I was like, "Okay, I'll try the soy milk. Is that made out of soy sauce?" And they're like, "No, no, 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 no."
It's
So
funny.
like, I don't want soy sauce in my coffee.
You're
But
right.
anyway,
That is funny. Yeah, I like that.
and
That's cool.
one
Yeah, for
last
me
thing
it
I
was
want
is a
to
little bit different because I just well I went plant based before, like I said, for my health. It wasn't like about the animals. It was just I have type 1 diabetes, and I was seeing this doctor that was like, hey, like even a plant-based diet can help sort of like tone down your insulin resistance, which helps your
Mhm.
insulin that you are injecting work more effectively and do what it's supposed to do without all the ups and downs. And I tried it and it worked. And I was like, whoa, what is this thing? So, but yeah, but now I'm finding that the more I learn about it, the more, because I went back to eating some animal products for, because I had some surgeries and stuff, and it was easier to just like eat something, just pop it in the microwave that was quick, or a sandwich or something. Um, and I also have to eat gluten free, so it's like the diabetes and the gluten free and the vegan, it can get a little super limiting. But I made it work anyway. So, but now I'm trying to get back into it, and I'm like, okay, if I learn more about it, I feel like it's gonna be something that's gonna last for good, and I'm not gonna keep going back and forth. So that's why I like having these conversations. And I'm like, okay, what made you do it? Like, how did you, like, where can I learn more about it? Like, let's talk about it. Help me inform myself, my decisions, and all that. So, yeah.
Cool.
But one of the, I used to be one of those people that I mentioned in the opening, where you hear the word vegan and you're like, roll your eyes and be like, why did you gonna tell me about it now? But now I'm like really into it. Like I really really I think that the vegan ideals are spot on. So, but what do you think that is that people get so defensive about veganism?
Well, and I'll say I used to make fun of vegans and now look at me. So, some people can change. I'm not sure if it's all of us, but like I think a lot of people can change. So it just takes some time, and it's hard because the society is stacked against us. All the commercials on TV promoting meat and dairy and eggs, all the restaurants, all the grocery stores. It is more convenient to be an animal eater, but sometimes the best things to do are not the easiest things to do, and it's not that hard to be vegan. It's I consider it easy enough, like because we've got rice, pasta, fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, beans, bread, grains, cereal, and then vegan burgers, vegan pizza, vegan hot dogs, vegan chicken, vegan ice cream. So it's not like we're asking you to give up all earthly pleasures or nothing. um
Yeah.
and I think it just we are defensive, I think, because we're so used to something and we don't want to I mean, it depends on the person why they might be defensive, but a lot of times I think people are defensive because they don't want to take accountability for their actions. Like I didn't want to. I was very resistant to change, not just because I didn't know what I would eat, but because and I didn't want to, and I was afraid of change, but because I didn't want to admit guilt for animal cruelty. But that's what this is. Like, slaughter is animal cruelty. It's cruel to cut their heads off, even if it's quick and painless. We wouldn't want it done to us, so we shouldn't do it to them. And so making that connection can just be a slap to the face, kind of, and when you're first waking up from a dream or from sleep, your first reaction is to be mad at the person who woke you up, or to be upset with the alarm clock, but it's like the house is on fire and you set the fire. Like you kind of you and the meat industry, like I mean, it's not all of our fault. It's also just how we were raised, and the meat industry's propaganda, and the fact that meat tastes good and it's everywhere and convenient and stuff like that. But we gotta snap out of it and wake up, because the house is on fire, and it's not just us that's burning. The poor little animals didn't do nothing wrong, and we're forcing them into slaughterhouses, and it's not okay.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, because like I mentioned earlier, you know, compassion is a trait that we usually admire in someone, right? But it seems like when we put it into to animals, it's like, nah, that's extreme, and like it's heavily criticized, and when we extend it to, I'm sorry, to non-human animals. So it's like, well, and not even to all non-human animals, because it seems like we don't extend compassion only to the animals we eat, because we do extend that compassion to dogs and cats. And like,
Yeah,
if you see somebody kicking a dog, like, the majority of people will intervene on that, right? Like, they might punch the person, like they will
Mhm.
take that dog and save it.
Yeah,
So, but if you see a cow being taken into a slaughterhouse, like, kind of look away and don't really do anything about it. So
It's like our minds have been trained to like separate that. I mean, that's an issue I definitely have. I admit that for sure.
cool.
yeah, I think so. Like, so it's hard to see why that compassion towards all animals isn't more normalized. Like, why don't we raise our kids from birth to understand that all of us are animals, and that we shouldn't. Yeah, I'm sorry. You look like you were going to say something.
Yeah, it's just because we have that bias and selective compassion, and we have a vested interest because we get pleasure from eating them and their byproducts. Like, and like you said, because we were raised with dogs and cats, but we weren't really raised with cows and pigs and chickens, except for those of us who grew up on farms. But those folks were often conditioned to be desensitized to those certain animals, to again categorize them as food animals, or farm animals, whereas the dog is the pet or the work dog or the work animal or something like this. And these are all just categorizations that we put them in that they don't necessarily want to be in. Like, they kind of just want to chill and relax and feel safe and hang out with their friends and family, eat good food, and have fresh air and the sun on their back, just basic stuff. And I think
Yeah.
we should respect that.
Yeah, I saw a video earlier, and it was a baby elephant, and there were two people sitting on the ground, and the baby elephant comes around and starts like wrapping up around them, and like then he puts his front legs on top of the guy's shoulders, kind of like trying to get a piggyback ride. And I was like, wow, like, yeah, people don't realize how deeply animals can feel and how close to human emotions and um, neurobiology, like, they also have, right? Like, they all have all the same type of neurotransmitters that we have, and the same type of nerve endings that we have, so they can feel pain just the same way that we do. And just because we don't quite understand every single animal doesn't mean that we don't understand that at least mammals feel pain the way that we experience it.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
I have a question.
birds and fish as well. But yeah, go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, I mean, this is just my brain just like go asking questions itself.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not really knowledgeable on a lot of this. So I understand it, but I have a question in terms of, so in an animal environment, would it be possible for a carnivore type animal to become, um, to where they only eat plants? Like,
Well,
no.
I mean, it'd be tricky if you're talking about lions and stuff out in the wild,
Yeah.
but like, as far as like dogs and cats, yeah, they can eat a plant-based diet. There's dog and cat food out there. There's scientific studies about this, and so folks can research that on their own time. And this dog sitting right next to me just transferred over to a plant-based diet the other day.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
that's
Awesome.
that's good. Hopefully, it'll heal up his itching problem, but we'll see. We're also gonna do everything else in his best interest to make sure this itch goes away, not just a plant-based diet, but
Yeah, but that could help for sure. I mean, it could be.
yeah, I know that there are certain animals. I don't want to name which because I'm probably going to be wrong, but I think lions was one of them. Well, like, their body does not make certain amino acids, and so they do need that from meat. So they wouldn't necessarily have like the best quality of life if they didn't. But yeah, I mean, it would be hard in the wild for sure. That's like kind of like an impossible thing to do.
yeah. I'm not
Yeah,
too sure, but
yeah.
but theoretically, yeah. But anyways,
Yeah,
let's
my
aim
brain my
at
brain's quite
humans
crazy
first.
sometimes.
Yeah. But speaking about that, like one of the biggest misconceptions that people have when they think about going vegan, or like when talking about veganism, is that they think that veganism means zero harm, and like harming absolutely no animal or anything. Um, and how do you respond to people who say that vegans are still killing animals like rodents and insects and small animals? I feel like it's a silly thing to say, but
Yeah,
people will go.
yeah, the idea of veganism that I'm working with is, just respecting animals and being against their exploitation and slaughter as much as possible and practicable. So that, we can't be perfect in this world, but we can strive to minimize the amount of harm that we cause. And we shouldn't, in my value system, we should not support needless systems of oppression like farms and slaughterhouses that just are there to exploit, and objectify animals and deny them their bodily autonomy. Um, so, uh, sorry, what was the question again? I got off on
Oh
a
yeah, no, like like what do we say to people that are like, well, you're still killing small animals.
Yeah, so it's true that some animals die in the harvesting of plant foods. So that, like I said, there's killing in any modern agriculture, but that amount of killing is magnified when you eat animals, because the animals that we eat are fed plants. And so according to Yale, it takes 25 calories of plants to make 1 calorie of beef. And it's similar with like grams of protein. It's like 16 grams of plants to make 1 gram of beef protein. So if you care about those little animals, like insects and maybe some mice or some birds every now and then that might get killed in plant food production, either from pesticides or from the farm equipment running them over or something like this. As terrible as that is, we have to feed ourselves, and that's just the way we got to do it right now. Hopefully in the future we can work towards indoor vertical farms, which don't require pesticide, and no animal can get inside the building to eat up the crops. But I don't know how sustainable that is, how practical that is for widespread, and how soon that would happen. But again, it would be a nirvana fallacy to say you can't be perfect, therefore we might as well not even improve.
I love that. I love that. Okay, I've never heard it like put exactly that way. That bit that you just said. I hope that a lot of people are listening to that. Yeah, because say let's put it this way too. Okay, if I'm gonna cook a meal, and let's say I have a gas stove, and I go and turn on the fire, and I put the pot on top of it to cook my food, and then I turn it off. That's cool. I kept it contained to that area. I shouldn't set my entire house on fire every time that I'm gonna cook. And that's the way I see like factory farming. It's like we're setting our houses on fire to eat one meal instead of just setting that one little fire contained right there.
Sure.
So that's the thing with like where you're saying like killing all of these animals versus, some of them might die when you're I don't know growing all of these plant food. So yeah, that's a
Yeah,
great.
it's more about minimalizing the death of as small as you can, in terms of like killing. If you have, what's the word I'm looking for? So if you have some animals that are killed, if the number is smaller than farming these these animals in like large corporate type farming situations, then minimalization is like what you're looking for, just bringing that number down basically for
Yeah.
casualties of animals.
Yeah, and by minimizing killing, I don't mean um eat vegan 6 days a week and then pay for meat that one other day of the week and still feel like you're minimizing it, so that's good enough. Because abolishing the meat industry is something we can do. The dairy industry, the egg industry, which tortures and kills baby animals, we can abolish and should abolish those exploitative industries. But that's different than having to grow plants for our survival, and some animals dying in the process on accident or indirectly or just as a last resort.
Yeah, I agree with that. So,
And what
so
one other, if I could real
yeah,
quick,
go
I was
ahead.
going to say, so some people will wonder, well, what about like, instead of factory farmed animals that are fed, soy and wheat and corn, what about pasture raised animals like grass fed beef or hunting? Because those animals are eating grass instead of those plants in agriculture. And so maybe if we do, but so if you do hunting or grass fed beef, the argument might be that you're killing less animals than the vegan who's eating from plant based agriculture that kills the little animals. And though that might be true, the problem with that is still that grass fed beef and hunting are not sustainable, because grass fed beef is like 4 times more methane than regular beef. Um, because the cows stay alive longer in grass fed beef, because they don't reach slaughter weight as quick. So instead of being killed at 18 months old, they're killed at like 24 months old or something, like, or 24 months old. So they're alive for a few months longer to get up to slaughter weight. And they emit more greenhouse gases, more methane. And then the problem with hunting, that's not practical, because if every meat eater wanted to hunt or pay someone else to hunt their meat for them, then that would eradicate the wild animal population, all the deer and whatnot, in like a week or whatever, across the world, because only 4% of the world's biomass is wild animals. So those aren't solutions. We need to feed people a healthy diet too, which, a plant-based diet has been shown to reduce cancer risk, reduce heart disease risk, so diabetes.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have personally experienced so many benefits from a plant-based diet. Like I said, I started because of type 1 diabetes, and it helped my blood sugar a lot. But I've been fighting high cholesterol for like 10 years before that, and no matter what type of animal foods I ate, it wasn't coming down. And within a month of going plant-based, it came down to like right below the normal level, and my doctor was like, wow. And
Mhm.
she actually asked me like, what did you do, like, and I was like, well, I was reading this book about calm mastering diabetes, and she was like, wow, okay, I'm gonna go and check it out.
Yeah,
uh,
exactly. Like there's a lot of studies, high quality studies, like randomized control trials and meta-analyses and prospective cohort studies that are showing this information. Lots of, hundreds of these studies. I have a list, right? And but a lot of doctors, like your general practitioner, is not aware of all this because they're not an expert in nutrition and dietetics. uh, they're not a dietitian, they're not a
mhm.
certified nutritionist, and even above a nutritionist is a dietitian. um, and so that's where you really want to go if you want good nutrition advice, is from a dietitian or a nutritionist. But your general doctor should know this stuff by now, but a lot of them, they only have to take like one, I think only one class in college about nutrition. But
I
this is
I
preventive
had
medicine.
Yeah, I had looked up the statistics on that, and I think it said that throughout their 4 years of medical school, they only get about between like 3 and 5 hours total. So
Yeah,
it's like nothing. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
that's not
basically
good.
nothing. Yeah, I mean, it also helped my pain. I have a really painful condition that affects my leg, and I've been like on crutches and wheelchair and everything. And again, within a month of going fully whole foods plant based, my pain was so low that I had to like turn off my nerve stimulator, like bring down the dosage about like I was off like two different pain medications that I was on, and eventually came off the third one and fourth one. Now I take nothing. I take no pain medications, nothing. I don't use any type of assistive device or anything like that. So, oh no, I think he's. Did your screen froze? Maybe can you still hear us, Chase?
He's still there.
Oh,
Okay.
it froze for a second. Yeah. Let me
Oh
plug in my
yeah. Okay, you're
computer
good now.
just in case.
I thought you left it for a second.
Okay.
Good.
But I was going to say, I'm so glad that you've had all these positive effects from a plant-based diet. But have you tried Elwood's organic dog meat?
That's funny.
We have not.
Cute puppy.
It's local.
Oh, that okay. I get it now. That's funny. All right. I'm sure people will
So
look
that
at
means
you like,
it's okay, right?
right? Yeah. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. If we wouldn't want it done to
going back,
dogs, because,
I
yeah, go ahead.
know, right? Yeah. No, actually, what you were just saying, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and well, it was like a group talk, and I was kind of like listening, and they were talking about this and that animal, and bunnies, and I think it was pigs, maybe, and one of the people was like, "Oh, you know, I love animals," and so I asked, "Well, are you vegan?" And she was like, "No, no, I'm not. But I just love all animals." And I was like, "Oh, okay." um, but so another question I had was, you were, let's go back for a minute to the factory and farming and agricultural, animal agriculture. I know that you gave me a whole document a while back, and I looked at some of the statistics, and I can't remember the exact number, but it was like, was it how many? Maybe you can remember how many millions of animals, just cattle, we kill per year. It was like
Um,
70
so
million, maybe.
I think I'm not sure how many. Okay, so it's 77 million cattle in America.
Okay, yeah, it was just in America because I
Wow.
think,
Okay. I was
yeah.
gonna ask if that was global stats or if
No,
those
I'm
were
pretty sure the
just for the
numbers were
U.S.
just for the
Okay.
states, though.
But
Yeah, I
that's
think you're
just
right.
cows. Like the most
Yeah,
animals
that
that are
was just
killed are
cows.
chickens because they're smaller. So chickens make up the vast majority of the animals that are killed in animal agriculture. Actually, fish would be even more because they're smaller, and 50% of all the fish in America is farmed fish, not wild fish. But anyway, the number globally, like,
I
well, I'll
found it.
say, okay,
Okay, I
cool.
found the document. It's 70 billion land animals killed across the world, which is 10 times the human population. Okay.
Yeah,
Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then it says 70% of the deforestation in the Amazon rainforest is for raising cattle to make beef. And this comes from the United Nations. We didn't make this up. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
70
it's
billion land animals. And
70
that
billion.
number is from I think 2008. I'm not sure. So that report, so the I think it might be more like 90 billion, but that's just land animals. That doesn't include all the
Yeah,
sea
no
animals,
chicken or
all
anything
the
like that. Yeah.
fish and crustaceans. So
True.
that number has been estimated to be in the trillions, like 2 trillion. But yeah, 70 billion land animals. That's cows, pigs, chickens, goats, lambs, that kind of thing. And uh 10 times the human population, for an optional product for most of us, for most parts of the world. Like there may be some little villages that rely on because they don't have arid land and agriculture and stuff yet, but we do. We in developed nations.
One of the concerns
Developed.
about
Yeah.
raising livestock is the amount of water used to produce the crops, correct? It takes a massive amount of water. I'm curious, if we were to stop raising animals for food, would we have to increase the production of agriculture to supply and support the population, or would it be around the same?
No, it would decrease
It would
significantly
decrease. Okay.
by like 75%.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because like I said earlier, it takes 25 calories of plants to make 1 calorie of beef. So
Okay.
and like 70, I think it was the University of Oxford was saying that 75% of the farmland is used for animal agriculture. And so
Yeah, I was just looking at that. Yeah, it's in that document too. It says the University of Michigan found that the vegan Beyond Burger creates 90% less greenhouse gas emissions and uses 99% less water, 93% less land, and requires 45% less energy than a beef burger. So that's like a massive, massive reduction in
Yeah, it
harm
is.
overall
Okay.
uh, for humans because we will get more water available for the environment, for the animals, and for health. So,
Yeah.
like if you think about it, it's like
It's a win
win-win
situation
overall.
all the way
Yeah,
around.
it's a
Yeah.
win.
Yeah.
It's a win for everybody for sure.
yeah, and what I recommend for people, a lot of times is just don't don't try to feel overwhelmed by, a big life change or something. Just take it one day at a time, one meal at a time. And you can plan your trip to the grocery store before you go, right? Have ChatGPT write you a list of vegan recipes and vegan things to pick up at the grocery store or vegan restaurants near you in your city, or vegan options at regular restaurants. If you're
Mhm.
going out with some friends to a non-vegan restaurant, you can still go maybe, but like, or you can encourage your friends to try the vegan place. But you can go and order the vegan thing and share it with your friends, or ask your friends to all order vegan, so that because it's pretty important. We need to encourage people and normalize veganism, so that people are not so turned off by it or freaked out when they hear the word. Because now, once we make it so that it's like, well, I know a vegan, and yeah, I have my
Mhm.
roommate's a vegan, or my sister's a vegan, or then it becomes a lot easier, just like with like the gay rights movement and things like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was just one of the things that's really hard finding stuff to eat out because for me it has to be gluten free and vegan. I mentioned earlier that it's gonna be Joe's birthday and we're gonna go out to eat this weekend. So I always like to look at the menu before we go and see if it's like something that I'm gonna be able to eat. And I'm excited because the place we're going has like a bunch of different restaurants and we all like eat outside in the middle,
Hmm.
and there's a place that has really good. I've tried it before. Has really good Vietnamese food that has tofu. So that's a win.
Cool. And
I'm excited for that.
I'm visiting Los Angeles right now, so it's really easy here because there's lots of vegan options and vegan restaurants. But I have been, for the past 5 years, I've been living in Idaho, where in a very small town in Trump territory, where there's no vegan restaurants, there's no vegan options at regular restaurants. So like, I mean, for the most part, so like sometimes the only thing there is French fries or a salad, and that
Yeah.
sucks. But I'll eat the French fries or the salad, or I won't eat at all because I'm not going to contribute to animal cruelty anymore as much as I can.
Yeah, that is one of the benefits of living in a metroplex, in a larger city or
Yeah, it's
larger
a lot
area that
more.
has more choices. Here where we live, I mean, there's so many choices and there's so many restaurants that serve only that as a menu option. So it's
Yeah,
a
for my
huge
last birthday,
difference.
I invited some family to go out to eat at a vegan restaurant, and one of the people that came with us was like, "Wow, like this is like you can't really tell that that it was vegan. It was that good. It was like kind of like Mexican food, but vegan. It's really good. I love to go back there."
Cool.
But speaking of food, do you think that the food choices that you make can be considered a form of activism?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a study on this also. What's it called? Arguments against efficacy in consumer activism or something like this, and it talks about the meat industry and like how vegan consumers, or when people buy vegan products, how it does in multiple ways have a tangible effect on the grocery stores, on the supply and demand chain, and that, you know, the more people that do this, the more it helps. um, so yeah. um,
Yeah, because grocery
Yeah.
stores order based on demand. If there's certain if they see certain items being purchased, and they're more likely to stock other items similar nature, basically, in order to try
I
to.
feel like our local grocery store probably keeps there's one item that I buy like maybe twice a week sometimes, and it's like a vegan fake chicken, and I'm like obsessed with it because it gets really crispy when I put it in the air fryer.
yeah.
And so I every time I buy it, I eat it like within 2 days. It's that good.
Yeah, and you can always like write down a list of vegan foods and take it to the manager of the grocery store.
Oh,
I do that
okay,
sometimes and be like, "Hey, you should stock this stuff. I'll buy it." And they're
that's a
like,
good
"Okay,
idea.
cool." Yeah.
Okay, I
Um,
love that.
and
Yeah,
then
because sometimes I've found a really good product, and I will buy it whenever it's available, but then it stops being available. I'm like, oh man! So every time I go to the store, and if I see this one, I'll buy like 2 bags of it. It is a little bit more pricey than the average, which most specialized foods are. But like you say, the more on demand it is, the more
The
they will
cost
have
will go
it,
down,
and
right?
then the
Yeah,
cost will probably eventually go
yeah.
down. Like when I first started eating gluten free, like what was that, like 15 years ago or so, um, the food that was available was horrible. Like bread was like eating a piece of cardboard, and now you have like this really awesome like French bread that feels like you're eating the real thing.
cool.
So like the more demand there is, the more like companies feel the pressure to make their products better, more available, more affordable. So yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Yeah, and I guess I wanted to talk a little bit more about the oh, did you want to read this? Let's read this.
Oh
So
yeah.
Sheldon says, vegan 9 years now, and it can be hard at times. Adjusted Mexican food, Subway, Indian food, Thai food, some pizza places of vegan cheese, the Impossible Burger at Burger King,
Hmm.
etc. It's true. There's so many options out there now. That Impossible Burger is great. Um,
It is.
Thai
Yeah.
food, Indian food are two of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe only recently started
I,
eating Indian food, and we've been experimenting with it. Yeah, they definitely have a lot of like, I love like the chickpeas and lentils, curries and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of options out there, really. You know, Taco Bell, even, the refried bean chalupa is really good. Just get it with no sour cream and no cheese. So it's just like just lettuce, tomato, and beans, and then some hot sauce on there, and it's good. Or they have other sauces that are vegan if you want, like the chipotle sauce and stuff.
Yeah, so I love talking about food. I love food, but I wanted to go back to like the vegan activism aspect of the conversation.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of people that think that vegan activism is too extreme or too harsh, and I actually had a conversation about this last night, and it got me thinking. And personally, I don't see it that way. Like if you think about it logically, like it what is happening to animals is like genocide, like, but we don't see animals as equally worthy of life. So until we get to that point, if we're like, nobody's gonna see it that way.
Well,
And yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, like, you don't necessarily have to value an animal, like all animals and all humans, exactly equally in order to not cut their throats. We can still like just say, "Hey, I value my friends more than I value a stranger, but I'm not gonna kill the stranger." So like, or
Yeah,
like, I value some animals more than some humans. I'll tell you that right now. Like Hitler,
I'm sure
Hitler
there's people that feel
versus the
that way.
puppy dog. Yeah, I'm gonna save the puppy from the burning building instead of a serial killer any day of the week, right? because the serial killer is dangerous, like I'm still against the death penalty and stuff, but we need to separate them from society and stuff. But if there's no option to do that, and it's between an innocent puppy, I value the puppy like this puppy sitting next to me is like a little kid. They frolic through the house, they love going on walks, they get excited when we come home.
Don't
So
judge you.
yeah, they don't judge us. Like I really view a lot of animals as similar in a lot of ways to children, because they're not as smart as us, they're not as strong as us, they're vulnerable, and we have power over them, and I'll be damned if I abuse that power anymore.
That's very, very true. Yeah, I completely understand that. Um, so sorry, I was trying to think of where I was going earlier.
With
Um,
activism.
that that somebody told me that vegan activism was too harsh, and we were talking about when, like you do sometimes, you will go and protest in front of a place, the slaughterhouse or something. But if you look at what is going on around the world today with other protests that we've been seeing, like everybody has a cause that's near and dear to their heart. Like you pour your energy into it. It can be anything from like LGBTQ rights, women's rights. I don't know, boycotting companies like Tesla or like Target because they removed the eye protections, or like Tesla's boarding up their cars, or like spray painting their factories. So I'm having a hard time seeing how veganism
Yeah.
is more extreme than that, like vegan activism. I see it as very similar. So
Yeah.
tell me more like what you do. I want to hear like maybe like some positive results too that you've had.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm a human rights activist as well. I've been a human rights activist for longer than I've been an animal rights activist, about 20 years or more, with human rights. So, yeah, once we realize that cows and pigs and chickens are just like dogs and cats, and that dogs and cats are a lot like little kids, then it's like, wow, okay, so these animals we're oppressing are like little kids. So we need to like really take some action for them. Okay. Like they're not exactly like little kids. I understand that little kids will grow up and be smarter and contribute to society in more meaningful ways than a dog or a pig, but nevertheless, there's some children who have learning disabilities, like severe, brain damage or something. They're missing half their brain or whatever, and they're never going to be as smart as you and me. They're never going to be smarter than a 3-year-old child or a dog or a pig. And so we still extend them moral consideration. We say, it doesn't matter that you're not smart like us. What matters is you feel pain and pleasure and you want to live. And so we're going to protect you regardless of our differences. Right. And so, so then that means that these animals are worthy of protest. Right. Ending this violence is a serious issue, and people need to take it seriously. Right. So I help normalize that. I've been to over 200 protests.
Wow.
And it's fun.
I'm sure.
It's fun. You get to scream, get out all your aggression. You don't, and we're not like, I'm not yelling at people. I'm yelling in front of them. I'm
system.
I'm yelling at the system in front of people so that they can, understand the severity of the situation and take collective action and get educated about the issue. And we've seen it work time and time again. Other social justice movements like women's right to vote movement, the civil rights movement, the gay rights movement, the anti-war movement, and even in the animal rights movement, we've had some successes with like banning fur in California.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was in part a protest movement, but it was also part legislative, like lobbying politicians and the city council and educating and motivating them to take a stand against fur. And they were animal lovers, and so they passed the resolution, and there you go. It
Nice.
started in a small progressive area of West Hollywood, California, and then went to another small progressive town of Berkeley. California, and then expanded to a bigger city, a metropolitan of San Francisco, and then Los Angeles. And then we took it to the governor and he passed it, he signed it
Wow.
and it passed in California, the whole state. So that's kind of, and then other states are trying to introduce copycat legislation. And then, so that's kind of how bans on animal products can work, starting in one area and expanding from there. And then, but also the protests in New York against fashion designers and retailers like Calvin Klein and Hugo Boss or whatever, all these different Canada Goose. And so they would have like fashion shows or interviews on stage where their CEO or is giving an interview, or they're doing a catwalk, with the fashion models wearing fur or whatever. Or even if they're not wearing fur at that moment, if they sell fur, they're a target of the campaign. And so activists will rush onto the stage non-violently and peacefully disrupt the proceedings and start shouting for animals and holding signs of, foxes that have been skinned alive. I don't know if anybody's seen footage of the fur industry, but you should go to
No.
YouTube and watch that for a minute.
Yeah, and I mean
Yeah, I
that was
haven't
like
either.
oh
Go ahead.
yeah, no, I haven't either. Yeah. But that was a question that I also had for you. Like, uh, there's like so many different methods. As I mentioned earlier, we had Dan, objectively Dan, on the show before, and he's a very kind person, and but he will sit with you and talk about it for hours about veganism. And that works for some people. It works for people like me, for
Yeah.
example, because I need my brain to like know the information. I do that with like all of my medical stuff. Like I will learn literally everything there is to know about it, so that I can make good decisions. And then, but then you have people, but that doesn't work for them, and so they need those type of methods to where you're like showing it in their face, like what is really happening, just like it happened to you, where you were able to do this change overnight. That
Mhm.
seems to be the best method for some people. So how do you have a way to determine what method you use, or like you kind of like go with?
Well, it's tricky because there's not a lot of like social science research on this, like social psychology or sociology specifically about animal rights campaigns and vegan activism and stuff and outreach and education. But there is studies about protest movements and there's historical precedents. So, so there's a lot of different effective forms of activism for animals. Some of it is just cooking food for people so that they know that vegan food tastes good, and then telling them this isn't just a diet, though. This isn't about food. This is about animal rights because, eh, uh, and then there's more, and then there's nice one-on-one conversations like what we're doing right now, basically, but also in front of an audience, which is cool. And then there's, showing slaughter footage in public, like every weekend while I'm in Los Angeles, I join this group called Anonymous for the Voiceless, and they have this demonstration called Cube of Truth, and you can find the events on Facebook and Instagram. And what they do is they just wear, like, one activist will stand in a public area with a lot of foot traffic and have a mask on and a TV strapped to them,
Oh,
showing
I've seen that on your channel, I think.
yeah, showing slaughter
Okay.
footage or animals in farms and stuff. And people walk past and they get a glimpse, sometimes for the first time in their life, of animal cruelty in the food system. And we try to stop them, or if they come up and talk to us, or they stop and watch the footage, we'll talk to them for a few minutes and explain the issue, explain what they're seeing on the TV, and changes that they can make, which is to go vegan, which is not anything less than that. Like, we want people to be abolitionists, not reducitarians, not excusitarians. You know, we want not vegetarians, because that still hurts and kills animals. You know, we want to make sure people know that even being vegan isn't enough. We need to be animal rights activists, just like we're human rights activists, just like we speak up when we see something wrong. We need to speak up. And that doesn't mean necessarily that you have to grab a megaphone and lead the protest like I do, but you know, talk to your friends and family about this issue and share some information on your social media every now and then so that people wake up.
Yeah, my
Like
my
that.
sister actually became plant-based as well. When I first started a couple of years ago, learning about it and going through the journey, and I told her about it, and she was like, "All right, you know what? It completely makes sense. I'm gonna try it." And so yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, definitely some people respond better to those type of presentations or information, right? Like if you present them with like a video or something like that, where it's more of a visual thing. Yeah,
Yeah. And some
yeah,
people, it seems, need to be held accountable, like verbally, like, you know, I don't have to be a jerk about it, but I might need to be pretty firm with certain people sometimes, you know. Other people, like, or for the most part, I like to leave a good taste in people's mouths, you know, like I like to, you know, but it's hard, you know. I hope people can be patient with activists, because it's hard to be patient and firm at the same time, you know, because that's what I'm trying to do, is be patient and firm. um because I don't want people to shrug it off like it's no big deal. You know, this is a big deal. If we were in the animals position, we would be kicking and screaming just like they do. And so, you know, and one last thing I wanted to say about, like, the, you know, that slaughter is animal cruelty, is because, like, if we imagine like kicking an animal, like, I have this thought experiment called kicked or killed, like which is worse, to be kicked or killed. So like if you get kicked, whether we're talking about a dog or a pig or you, if you get kicked one time, you're going to have a bruise and some fear, you know, and that sucks. That's terrible. People should not be kicking anybody. That's wrong. But to kill you is worse, right? Even if it's a quick and painless death. If I shoot you in the back of the head while you're sleeping, there's no pain and there's no fear, so that's good. But I straight murked you. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
not cool. So, like, if we're against kicking animals, which everybody is, every meat eater I meet for the most part is against kicking animals. And so we should be even more against killing them.
that is a really good point. Yeah, and I had actually thought about that when we were having that conversation earlier, um, when about killing animals without suffering. And well, you were continuing the conversation, and then I forgot. But yeah, I was gonna mention that. But like, yeah, if you murder someone, it doesn't really matter whether you murder them humanely, or like if you inject them with something and they die peacefully, or if you like shoot them from the back. You're still murdering somebody that doesn't want to die.
And it's
So
before they would have naturally died, you know. So like euthanizing an animal when they're old and sick is fine, you know. That's one thing. I had to give a mercy killing like that to my dog when he was old and sick at 14 years old, but because his quality of life had deteriorated to the point where it was no longer worth living. But that's not what we're doing with pigs that are killed at 6 months old and cows that are killed at a year and a half old when they can live to be 25 years old.
Okay, I was gonna
Cows.
ask what is their lifespan. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's like a child then, like you said,
Yeah.
it's a baby
Yeah.
more or less. Yeah.
So I just want to be real clear on the numbers. Cows are killed when they're 18 months old, even though they could live to be 25 years old. Pigs are killed when they're 6 months old, even though they could live to be 12 years old, just like a dog. Chickens are killed when they're 5 weeks old, like 40 days old, and they could live to be 10 years old.
Wow.
So the first animal I stopped eating, this before I went vegan or vegetarian, I stopped eating veal because it's a
mhm.
baby cow, you know, like they're only like between a week and 3 months old. And so I stopped eating veal, not realizing that I was still eating nothing but baby animals by eating all those other animals, you know. And I think it really strikes a nerve with people when they find out that all animals, whether it's a factory farm or a small local family farm, they all go to slaughter when they're children, because that's when they reach slaughter weight, because they've been fed so much. And it's not profitable for the farmer, for the meat industry or the egg industry or the dairy industry to keep the animal alive. It's not profitable to keep feeding them every day for years and decades to let them have a nice, long, happy life. So,
So they
Yeah,
inject them with hormones now, though, right? In order to make them, they don't age quicker, but they mature quicker, I would assume, right? They have more meat, so they can reach a certain weight.
talk
I
bigger.
guess that's what they're looking for, to be able to kill them at an early age, because they're able to reach that mass that they're looking for.
yeah.
Um, I did have a question, Chase. Maybe you know. So when you were talking earlier about uh, the street thing, showing the video on the screen, in the street, and you mentioned that some people might be seeing the slaughter of an animal for the first time, or how animal is processed, being killed, and then on the store shelves. Do you know what the percentage of people, or maybe just guess at it, what would be the percentage of people you think in the world population that have never seen, or don't even think about or connect slaughtering animals to the food on the shelf? Because as a society, even from a young age, we teach our kids, we don't want them to see that, so they'll eat chicken nuggets, or so they'll, we make chicken nuggets in fun shapes, to make them, kids think it's something that's not even connected to the killing of an animal. What would be the percentage, do y'all think, of people that have never, like,
Well, it's hard to
seen that or
say,
connected?
I ask people, one of the first questions I ask is, when they stop and they're watching the footage, or if they're passing by, and I say, "Hey, have you guys seen footage like this before?" And a lot of times they say no, they haven't, or sometimes they say yes, they have, and it's terrible, and that's, a stepping off for the conversation, jumping off point, that they agree that it's terrible. But um, it's hard to say. And a lot of people aren't on social media, and social media often blocks or doesn't highlight animal cruelty videos. I don't know how often you guys see them. I only post videos like that pretty rarely, and I started putting a trigger warning on them, not like a full cover of the video, but like a word, that says in big bold print, warning, you know
Like
um
graphic content or something of that
yeah.
sort. Yeah.
But yeah, I only post it maybe like once a month or something, because I don't want to overwhelm people too much. But we gotta educate people, because again, if it was happening to us, we would hope that people would be brave enough to watch the video evidence of our oppression and then take action.
Yeah, I've seen videos of factory farming, of the slaughterhouses and the factory style, and it is horrifying. I mean, I don't know how to describe it, but it's definitely, it does make me feel bad for still eating. I'm not a full vegan, I
He's been
still
more
eat
open
meat.
about trying
Um,
vegan food, though.
it's
Yeah.
hard for me, though, just because the way that I've been raised in society, and my brain is wired, to just look past that, and don't connect that together with the food I'm consuming. I guess I kind of block it out. But AJ has definitely been trying to open me up to it. I mean, a couple years ago, I wasn't. I mean, I think I didn't eat meat for like 6 months, and it
Yeah,
was
but
it
that was
was it was
probably like
doable.
10 years ago,
Yeah, it was a
maybe.
long
It was
and
a
thing.
long time
It was
ago.
like really hard for me to go through that, and like
Mhm.
it's a struggle for sure. And
Yeah. Well, like, have you been trying the vegan? Well, you said you tried the Impossible Burger at
yeah,
Burger
I
King.
do
So
eat a lot of stuff. So I do. I mean, I have brought it into my diet for sure, but I'm
yeah.
just like, it's still a struggle, like an everyday battle for sure, like
Well, let me
in
let
my
me ask
mind.
you let me ask you this. Like, well, the first thing I'll say is, like, a lot of times people say they've seen some videos of the treatment of animals in farms and slaughterhouses, but sometimes I don't know how in depth you've gone into that.
Oh, well, I've seen, cattle that could barely walk. They look sick, and then prodding them with these metal shockers. I've seen them slice throats. So
Okay.
I've seen some pretty gory
Okay.
stuff on in terms of that. But again, my mind takes that in as, yeah, that's gruesome and harmful, and I would never want that to be done to me. But then somehow I block it out and completely separate what I just saw from what I'm from the end product that I'm
Okay.
cooking in my pan. So
And so I guess I'm trying to find a way in that'll work on you, so
yeah,
I'm trying
yeah.
to brainstorm, I'm thinking like, does what I was saying earlier about this being a form of discrimination resonate with you? Like,
It does. It does. I do see that kind of brought a different perspective to it when you said that earlier.
uh
So things are moving in my head for sure.
yeah, because for me, it wasn't seeing graphic footage first that changed me. It was just that philosophy of being against speciesism, and being against, might makes right.
Yeah,
That's
I never heard that term until you said it earlier. So it's definitely a new way to look at it.
And remember that it doesn't mean we have to like view all humans and all animals equally. That's not what I mean. Like by speciesism, that's how it's a little different than like racism, because we should value, regardless of the, all humans equally, regardless of their race. But what I'm saying is just like, we don't have to value all animals and all humans equally. Let's just value animals more than we value a snack, you know, because we have other snacks. Um, and I guess let's see. Okay, so maybe can I ask you a couple questions that might put you in the hot seat?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, but I'll try and be
Sure.
nice. Okay.
Thank you.
so this is my friend that chip guy on YouTube. He has some really great live streams where he interviews the public, and they don't know what the topic is. So he just says, one of the thought experiments that he'll do is ask the person, do you think that the powerful should have the right to oppress the powerless?
Wow, that's a deep question.
If the powerful, repeat it for me again. I'm sorry.
Should
Just
the
think about it like what is going on currently in the government. Okay, do the powerful, Trump,
The- Yeah,
Elon
correct.
Musk,
Well, yeah, people would.
have
Okay,
the right to oppress the powerless,
okay.
us?
Yeah, I would say no. They don't.
Okay, now
Okay.
put
Yeah,
humans and
yeah,
animals on that
Yeah.
question.
Yeah,
Did I get that right?
he phrases it. Yeah, that was fine, but he phrases it. My friend, that chip guy on YouTube, he phrases it as like individuals. Like, is it wrong for one individual to oppress another individual just because they have power over them? And
over
so, by
them. Yeah,
saying individual, that covers both humans and non-human animals, because humans are also animals. But we're all individuals. Animals are individuals. They're not objects, right? So he'll say, so then he'll like agree with the person, okay, great, it's good that you believe that the powerful should not oppress the powerless, because some people actually disagree with that. Some people are like, no, that's the way the world works, and I'm stronger than you, so I'll do whatever I want.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
for
dang,
sure.
son. It's pretty scary people out there sometimes. But and then he'll say, like, should we discriminate against others based on differences like skin color, or how much hair they have, or how they walk, or things like this? And the
Yeah.
person, so what would you
Well,
say?
I'd say yeah, we should not either. I mean,
Right. And
definitely
so
shouldn't.
most people agree, yeah. And then let's see, he'll say like, and should we discriminate against animals, or he'll say like, should we discriminate against others because of their species? And or he'll just ask, how do you feel about animals? Do you think we're oppressing animals because we have power over them? And the person would say, yes, I think usually they'll say, yeah, they're being oppressed in the farms. But and you've kind of already acknowledged that they're being oppressed, right?
Yeah, like I agree that they are for sure. I mean, it's like a prison system for animals. It's just we're using them, uh, and then we turn them into food. So yeah, no, I completely agree. Like I said, it's just I haven't been able to separate that block that I have in my mind that I've been raised with, all my life, to separate that as a child. So I would eat meat, to disconnect that from that. When I was in my teens, I remember a friend down the street, his dad was a hunter, and they would come home with deer. And when you were talking about, have you seen a fox skinned before. Um, I'm sure it's similar to skinning a deer, and that's something that's engraved in my mind. I don't eat deer because of that. When I saw them pulling the skin off of a deer, I mean, it's just gruesome. Um, that process makes me not want to eat a deer. But even though I've seen cows slaughtered in a factory setting, I still eat a hamburger because somehow I still have that block, that separation. I don't
Yeah.
want to I don't want to come to reality that cow is what I'm eating because I enjoy hamburgers so much, I guess.
Yeah.
But the impossible meat has definitely made me realize that I can still enjoy a hamburger and don't have to eat a cow. But
Yeah.
again, it's still that battle in my mind. Like I know that it's wrong and I feel for the animals, but yet I still put, I guess, myself over. I guess I'm selfish because I'm still think that, I'm 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 a more powerful creature than the animal, so I can still eat it. I don't know.
Well, let's try another hypothetical. Let's try another hypothetical. Just get you thinking outside the box a bit. So let's think about Superman. So Superman is another species, right? And so we're a different species than Superman, and he has power over us. And so, can Superman oppress us?
Yeah,
Would that be okay with your moral system?
it wouldn't be. It wouldn't
Okay.
be.
But why not? We're different species and he's got power over us. And what if it's been really hard for him to change because he's grown up in a society that
Yeah.
killed and ate humans?
Yeah, that's a really deep perspective for sure.
I think we need to
Man.
watch the Alien movie.
Ah,
We gotta
Yeah,
find that Alien movie that you told me about earlier.
yeah. So just think, if you were the victim and somebody had control over you, you would hope that they would be nice to you and choose the
yeah,
peaceful path.
that's
Um,
true.
and you now have a great responsibility on your hands because you have power over these animals, just like you have power over children. And I'm sure you're against bullying, and you must agree with all this philosophy and stuff, but your actions aren't matching your
They're
values.
not. Yeah, they're not.
And I'm
It's
not
true.
trying to make you feel like a bad person, but you're being really violent is the thing.
Oh, no, no, and not at all, Chase. Like I know that I contradict myself by blocking out that separation, you know?
Would it help you to like absolve that cognitive dissonance, like that uncomfortableness of feeling like hypocritical, to
Well,
like align your values with your
another
actions?
thing for me is again, this would be me being selfish, but I'm a very picky eater.
Mm.
I don't know if it's taste on some things and it's and texture as well,
I am
and
too.
and it makes it hard for me to eat some things, and vegetables have just never been a huge thing for me. Like vegetables and beans. I love rice, so I could live on rice for sure. Um, but there's a lot of vegetables that are just hard for my mind to say I want
Okay.
to eat it, which is very weird because my mind's okay with me eating animal flesh, but yet it sees a tomato
Yeah, that
and
is
it's
pretty
like
weird.
freaked out, like, oh, that tomato looks
A bee.
yeah, it looks like weird, don't eat it. So I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, it's my mind is very, very different from perspectives of some
Yeah.
people, I
Well,
assume.
I mean, I'm sorry that you're struggling because your heart sounds like it's in the right place for the most part. You're trying, you're wanting to do the right thing, so that's good. I would just say, like, make that change. Go ahead and just jump on in. The water's fine. Instead of you've been dipping your
I
toes
just
in
been
the
dipping
water
my
for
toes for
years
sure.
now.
It's
All right,
very true, Chase. Very true.
just jump
I
on
mean,
in.
there are just so many products out there these days. It's like I said, it sucks for me because I can't try all of them because a lot of them have gluten. Like I really like crispy foods, so I really want to find some fake chicken nuggets, but I
Yeah.
haven't yet. But I did find that other non-breaded vegan chicken that that's what I do. See, like I trick my mind into like, okay, I like crispy stuff, so this isn't meat, but it looks like meat and it tastes like meat and it's crunchy like the chicken, so it
Yeah.
works for my head.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
she'll
It
fry
helps.
up the tofu for me sometimes, and
Yeah.
she would tell
Oh
me it was
yeah.
chicken, and I mean I would eat it. I'd be like, oh, this is great. Dip it in ketchup. It's good.
Yeah, and
So
some
I mean,
vegetables, like it may depend on how you cook the veggies, like instead of eating it raw or, try it, sauteed with some vegan butter or air fry like bread and air fry the veggies maybe and dip it in something, I don't know, some sauce. But I was going to ask, like, do you think, Joey, that like, which is more important to you, the taste pleasure or the animal's life?
It should be the animal's life. Like I agree with that 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have what they call object permanence issues. Like if something isn't like right in front of you, then your mind's not thinking about it. So like if you see I don't know, let's say a steak that's already cooked like that, like your mind's not gonna see it as a cow.
Well,
Like for
if
some
like
people,
if the
yeah.
ease was not there for me to, yeah, to be able to go to the grocery store and buy a piece of meat, that I can cook without having to think that it was connected with all this other horrific stuff that happened before it got there, and on that shelf for me. If I had to go out and like hunt,
Yeah.
and kill the animal, slaughter the animal, process the meat, I wouldn't do it. I would definitely would not want to go through that whole process, because yeah, that's gruesome. I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't be a butcher. I mean, it's just
So
definitely something that there's the disconnect that we just don't see that when we were buying that food on the shelf. Maybe if they put a sign up like at the supermarket, if there was like a law where they had to like show pictures of cows being slaughtered like right there, kind of like
That's
a
not a bad
warning,
idea. That's
kind of
not a
like a
bad
warning
idea.
on cigarettes, or if I was like walking up there and it's like, this is this cow that, this is the meat here and this is the cow that it was killed, then I probably wouldn't buy it, because like right then, like AJ said, I would see that connection and I wouldn't want to buy it.
and do you think that it's a form of ableism to discriminate against animals just because they're less intelligent?
Yeah, it is.
Cool. And you're against ableism, right?
I am. Yeah.
Good. Let's see it in action. And last question that my friend Chip asks people is a very hard question. It's, how many more animals should be exploited and killed for you before you go vegan?
Man, it should be zero, but I can't commit to that today. But I'm definitely trying to get there. I do want to be there eventually,
Okay.
and
I
having
like
a
this.
having
This is like
AJ as my partner, like she definitely will get me there eventually.
Yeah. And maybe tomorrow you'll wake up with a new sense of energy and power, and you'll do what you think is right, you
Oh,
know?
I've enjoyed this whole conversation, Chase. It's
Cool.
it's been great and enlightening for sure.
Awesome.
yeah. That's why I said earlier. Like I like this type of discussions because it's hard and it's uncomfortable, but it's making us think, and it's making the people that are watching think about things that maybe they hadn't considered before. Like the questions that you were just asking, I hadn't seen them ask of anybody, and it's like, okay, that's hard, that's tough. Like I don't know how she's gonna answer that, but yeah, it's definitely questions that need to be asked. And I see a lot of this in the atheist spaces, where people are not quite putting two and two together to where we get our morality. Like we talk about less human harm and being moral and making moral and ethical decisions, and we are not quite there yet when it comes to other animals that are not human. So we
Yeah.
should be looking there towards that path.
Yeah, and it's just not fair because, these lines that we draw, like race or sex or species, are arbitrary lines that, nobody gets to control how they're born, and there's nothing wrong with being different. So if I'm against racism and sexism and ableism, I should also be against speciesism as much as I can.
Yeah, that's a great thing.
Yeah, I
And
like that.
I think we did cover this in some of the conversations. But do you have any advice for somebody like that is trying to align their eating habits with their values and the morals, and how they actually, like, Joe answer those questions, how they should be and how we should all feel, and if somebody is feeling that way and
Yeah,
thinking, hey, I could do better, like how
sure.
can you get started on it, like for someone that may not be able to do it like overnight?
Yeah, like immerse yourself in vegan content, probably, like watch some vegan debates on YouTube, and watch Dominion on YouTube with Joaquin Phoenix. It's free. It's from 2018, Dominion.
Dominion. Okay,
Okay, I'm
that's
gonna put it
interesting.
on. I'll put it in the chat and then on here so we can see the name. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay,
Dominion on
gotcha.
YouTube with Joaquin Phoenix, and um,
And he is a vegan.
he is a vegan. Yeah, he's been vegan since he was
Wow,
3 years old because
I didn't know that.
he saw some fish being hooked and drowned, or well, asphyxiated out of the water, and that's kind of like putting a dog's head underwater, right? So him and his family all went vegan right then and there because they were horrified by the
Wow.
animal cruelty. Um, and so that's cool. And he gave a great speech also at the Oscars when he won for. He gave a speech for animal rights, so you might want to watch Joaquin Phoenix's Academy Award speech. But then there's also, you can do. Well, we did talk about looking for vegan restaurants in your area.
I don't
Oops, I
know.
think
Chase froze.
the
You can
voice
find me
froze
on
up. Okay, there we go.
Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So you can send me a message. You can try to find vegan groups on Facebook so that you're at least not alone on the internet. You at least have some internet vegan friends. And nice, Sheldon, nice. And let's see. But I can't recommend that people try meatless Mondays or something like that, or to take baby steps or anything like that, because the severity of this issue is so extreme, and we're not babies, we're adults, and we need to like hold ourselves to a high standard and be fair and just, and it's not that hard, and we are capable of doing this. So I can't minimize the issue by saying, oh, just take your time and try it, try this or try that. It's like, no, you gotta stop this now.
Yeah, so earlier I was gonna ask you, we talked a lot about the animals that we kill to actually eat their flesh, but we didn't quite cover the harms that are caused to animals for the production of milk or eggs. Like, I know that
Sure.
you're very knowledgeable of this part, so I'm gonna let you do all the talking. Let's talk about milk and cheese first. Like, what is
Okay.
the process for like the cows? What is it like?
Yeah, so cows produce milk to feed their babies, not for us. We're not baby cows. Get off the tit. So like they produce this for their babies, and they don't get to choose. The mother cows, the females, they don't get to choose when they're impregnated. The farmers choose for them because this is a business, and they have a routine, they have a schedule and profits that they have to maximize. And so the farmer will forcibly impregnate, inseminate, rape the female cow while she's restrained with bull sperm. First, he jacks off a bull to get, he or she or they will jack off a bull to get the sperm, to then forcefully inseminate into the vagina of a cow. And before the semen goes in her vagina, the farmer will he puts his whole forearm into the anus of the cow to position her insides so that he can then get that metal rod into her vagina and drop the sperm so that she can get pregnant. She will be pregnant for 9 months, just like a human. And on the day of the birth, sorry, I'm trying not to cry because this shit is just so terrible.
You're
Yeah,
okay, man.
it is
It's okay.
extreme.
It's
It's
horrible. I'm
very
sorry.
extreme.
Like,
Yeah, it's extreme.
So the baby is separated from the mother uh, because the baby would drink the milk, and they want to sell that milk. And so they separate the baby, and the baby and the mother both cry for weeks on end. Like they'll moan out into the distance, and um, the the boys are killed because they don't produce milk, and they're not the same breed of cow used for steak. So that's where veal comes from, is a byproduct of the dairy
Mm,
industry.
wow,
Um,
I did not know that.
The
But see,
female cows will, or the female babies will go into rotation like their mothers and be forcibly impregnated year after year until they can no longer be impregnated, which is about 5 years old, and they'll be sent to the slaughterhouse to be turned into ground meat. And again, they could live to be 25 years old. And downer cows are the ones you've seen that can't stand up because their legs give out because they've been, just worked to death, basically. And so they're alive, but they can't get up. And so the farmers will like poke and prod them to try to
Okay, so
get
see
them up.
that makes what I've seen even more extreme to know the background behind that. That's wild.
Or they'll use a tractor and pick the cow up with a tractor to move them.
it's horrible. But this is the things that people don't realize. Like, imagine if we were talking about human beings. Like, if we were talking about a woman having that done to her, like people would protest in front of farms. And so I think what you're doing is extremely brave and horrifying at the same time. So I appreciate what you do. I
Yeah,
truly
no,
appreciate
it
what you
is
do, man.
for you to stand up and be that to feel that powerful and strongly into that is just, I mean, Chase, that's it's amazing to be able to that you feel that like to me I feel the sadness and connection to that, but I can see how like how strongly you feel about this, which is it really hit me to see you cry about that. It made me realize like the circumstance of what you were describing and just how extreme it really is. Especially that I mentioned earlier about being able to see that I've seen videos of the cows that can't stand and being prodded, and for you to give me that in-depth situation of how it came to that,
But I know
it's
that the
extreme.
majority
It's
of people
extreme.
that have seen those videos, they have not seen this in person, and you have. Like, you've been there in the front lines, like you've watched these things happen in front of you, and I mean, it must be like totally. I can see why you said earlier that you were traumatized by this.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it's
you
It's
have
definitely.
horrible. Yeah,
I have like survivor's guilt. Like, even though I was never one of the oppressed like animals in the farms or slaughterhouses, like I got to leave that place and they didn't.
yeah, I get that. Yeah,
And
yeah, that's understandable. So
yeah, I'm
there,
gonna
there
try.
is a question that pertains to this in the chat. Like, how do you deal with the burnout from your animal rights activism and uh,
Yeah, and these are good people to watch on YouTube. That Sheldon mentioned, Hench Herbivore. He's this big bodybuilder, vegan, nutritionist, and then also Joey Carbstrong is a vegan activist, and he does debates and rescues. And he has a movie on Amazon Prime called Pignorant that you should watch.
okay.
Pignorant.
Ignorant. Okay.
Yeah.
Have to definitely check that out.
Cool. And so, as far as preventing burnout, I try to pace myself, take breaks. I have a therapist, I have psychiatrist. Not everybody necessarily needs that, but being an activist is really hard, especially in a minority movement. I mean, like
Yeah.
a movement where like there's only like 2% of people are vegan. So like, and everybody hates us. It's it's pretty sad. So, but I have depression, I have PTSD and bipolar. So anyway, um, I'm on meds and stuff.
No,
But
but it's good that you say you have a therapist and someone to talk to about it, because seeing that type of stuff, it's definitely it's triggering. I mean, seeing any type of violence or just it's the same as going to war and seeing so many violent acts. I mean, it's definitely PTSD. You can definitely have that, from what you do, and
and not and
I
not just
commend you for what you do.
thank you. And not just this, like I had PTSD before I became an activist and a vegan and stuff, like just from my childhood and stuff. But I also like get traumatized just scrolling through Instagram and seeing all the, the like the horrors that are happening in Gaza, and the police brutality that's out there, but we've got to watch this stuff every now and then. We don't have to watch it every day and like, just end up crying and debilitated on the floor where we can't be active. But a lot of times, just hearing that, oh, so and so died, or there was a bomb, or that killed some children in Gaza, like that sounds terrible, but once you see the videos, it really hits you a lot harder,
Yeah.
and helps you to, especially if you see it on
Yeah.
a lot,
Yeah.
like unless you get desensitized somehow, like I think it helps inspire activism.
Yeah, I agree, and it goes with everything. Like, I don't know. Before I became active in these platforms, I knew nothing about like trans rights or stuff like that. So, like, surrounding yourself with people who are going through the hardships that they are helps you understand them a lot better. And again, I know I've said this 2 or 3 times already, but talking to people like you helps me solidify, that veganism is something that we should all look at, that we should all be looking into, and learning more about, and informing ourselves about, and informing other people about. So
Yeah, and while we're getting informed, we can abstain from animal products, so that, like, because there's like no need for it. And it only takes a quick bit of research to know that people do not have to eat animal products. Like, I mean, unless you're in some weird situation, like, and I'm not bothering homeless people to make them go
yeah,
vegan. You know
obviously.
what I mean? Like, I'll,
Yeah, like they'll eat what they kind of like survival at that point.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have met some homeless people who are vegan for the animals, but that's in cities like Berkeley and Los Angeles, where it's a little bit easier, but still even more difficult for them. Like, imagine how hard it is to be homeless and vegan, but they do it anyway. And I lived in my car for 3 years and was vegan, um, so I didn't have a stove or a microwave, and I still made it work, but it was definitely a challenge, but now I've got a stove and a microwave and a fridge, so it's pretty easy.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot easier. Uh, to have a lot of access. I mean, and for people that are watching this, obviously they have access to the internet, and they can easily look at videos, and how to cook, how to replace meat. And I don't know, I love mushrooms myself, and so I cook a lot of stuff with mushrooms. Um, but there's so many different ways that you can replace the meat that you're eating, because we're so used to having meat as the center of our plates that we don't realize that the rest of it can be the main
Yeah,
meal, and then put some protein that doesn't have to be meat. Okay, like a lot of people have a misunderstanding about protein.
yeah,
I'm
and let
sure
me
you get asked that question, like, where do you get your protein
yeah.
all the time,
And yeah, there's protein powders like made out of rice or peas, and that has like 25 grams of protein per serving, which is like 30 grams. So it's like really high in protein and low calories, low carbs. And then today for food, I had a sandwich that was so bread and sausage and cheese and egg, and it was awesome, and it was
that sounds
all
great.
vegan. Yeah, man, it was really good.
Yeah, I mean,
And
like I said, they make so many like awesome products. Like cheese has gotten so much better. Vegan cheese, I'm sorry.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Let me tell you the brand of vegan cheese that I like, because some brands are not so good, some brands are really
mhm.
good. So field roast chow cheese is amazing, and they have it as creamy original or like cayenne pepper, and then one other one, but yeah, chow cheese by field roast.
Chow cheese,
Okay.
like CHOW,
Like
like
chow.
chow?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
okay. A chow, CHAU? No?
AO at
AO,
the end.
AO,
Chow.
chow. Okay, okay,
Chow.
okay. Yeah, yeah, AO.
I think
CHA.
CHAO, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
See,
Yeah.
okay.
I think this store where we always buy stuff now doesn't have that brand, but I buy another one called Heart. No,
I
Heart.
follow your heart.
Follow Your Heart, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, Follow
Okay.
Your Heart's good
Yeah.
too.
It's decent. It's not like the best. I would say Chow is probably better,
Yeah.
but that one's pretty decent too. And they make like mayonnaise, vegan mayonnaise,
Mhm.
and ranch, and what's the other one? Like all this like creamy sauces that you see. So I mean, there's plenty of options for sure. I don't think
Yeah.
that. And yeah, for protein, definitely. You know, I'm not like a professional or anything, but the majority of people eat a lot more protein than what they actually need. Like most people need, I think it's like half a gram per pound. So like if you weigh, like myself, I weighed 100 pounds. So half of that, which is like 50 grams. So that's like, I can easily get that
Oh
probably by
yeah.
breakfast time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
easy to get protein on a vegan diet.
Yeah.
And there's vegan bodybuilders and athletes. If you want to watch a movie about vegan athletes, you can go to Netflix and check out The Game Changers.
That's a good one. Yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
There's an Argentinian bodybuilder that's vegan. I'm trying to think of his name. He made Delgado, I think it's called. I think it's his
Oh,
name.
Nimai Delgado.
Nimai Delgado. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's like he's on Instagram and stuff, and like he's a bodybuilder and he's a vegan. So there's no excuse for saying that you're eating meat because you need to build muscle. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Now I'll give you a warning as far as like milk. They sneak milk into like everything. So you'll
Oh
when you
yeah,
go
for
to the
sure.
grocery store and start reading ingredients, as all vegans have to do, to make sure that it ain't got no milk in there, because they sneak milk and eggs into stuff sometimes, you know. So you're gonna find some of your favorite products have got milk in it, and so you, just like I did, you got to say, all right, well, fuck that product, because I'm above it now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm above it. I ain't doing that shit no more. It's wrong. It's wrong. All right. And so, but you know, it just takes like 30 days or less, you know, just a few weeks of transition time, of getting used to a new habit. You know, I think psychologists say that it takes like 21 days to change a habit, whether it's a diet or
I've
an
heard
exercise
that.
routine, or, you know, quitting alcohol or cigarettes. After 3 weeks, your body's adjusted, your mind is new, you know, is hip to the new thing, and you're ready to go. So just
Like,
struggle for a little bit, and you'll persevere and keep your mind on the animals, and you'll be fine.
For sure. Yeah. You know, I remember when I called a while back, um, I think it was on Talkeethen, that was Forrest Falkai, and Dan was on, and Jimmy Jr. was on, who also went vegan this year, thanks to Dan. So Dan got two people out there, at least.
I think
Uh,
it was me. I think it was me and
too.
Dan, but like I pushed Jimmy Jr. over the edge on a
yeah, yeah, he said that he mentioned you as well, I think. Yeah,
it might have
I'm
been
pretty sure.
a
And
double team
so
on.
yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm pretty sure he's still vegan because last time I asked him, he said he was. So it's
Good.
been like several months. But anyway, so when I called that show, I think you put it on your channel, and I was like, I was kind of disappointed that I didn't know some of the facts. Because you know, as far as Valkai, he's like very knowledgeable about human evolution and human biology. So I didn't want to like say anything that I didn't know about. Like I knew more about the right side parts or like morality and all of that, but I didn't have a good defense on what he was saying. And he was claiming that humans have evolved to adapt to eating meat and that we get a significant benefit from it. And I was, after I watched the show and I went and looking and thinking, I was like, damn, like that's not right, because he's the very first person that will say that an adaptation is a trait that an organism develops over a long period of time. And he will always say humans don't develop these evolutionary traits quickly. Like it can take hundreds of thousands of years, if not millions of years. Like we don't really see them. And so for him to say that humans have evolved to adapt to eating meat is incorrect. And I hate to disagree with Forrest because I look up to him a lot. But if we look at the numbers, and I want to put this out there in case Forrest ever watches this video, he can correct me on it, okay? But the earliest known humans were discovered to have existed about 7 million years ago. Okay, so humans as a whole, as a species, have only been eating meat, from what we know scientifically, regularly for about 2 million years. Then modern humans, which is us, the Homo sapiens, have been around for only 300,000 years. So 300,000 years is not really long enough to do that type of adaptation. But on top of that, the domestication of animals has only been around for 10,000 years. And that's just domestication of animals. Before that, we ate wild animals. So, like, imagine this, the amount of animals that we were eating was like really, really small. And the Industrial Revolution started about 200 years ago. That is absolutely no way that we could have evolved a trait to require to eat meat in 200 years. All right. So this is what led to like factory farming that we see today, and the amounts of meat that we eat today versus what we ate, like 10,000 years ago or 300,000 years ago, which was probably like, I don't know, they probably hunted and ate that for like months, just like one animal. So
Wow,
yeah,
that's
hopefully
that's cool.
I've been wanting to tell Forrest that. So
Cool. Yeah, I didn't know. I hadn't made all those connections yet, so I'm glad you laid that out for us. That's really smart.
yeah,
So yeah, that's one of the good things that comes from vegan debates is that like if we're arguing with an honest interlocutor, an honest participant in the conversation, then we'll both walk away and go do more research and find out where we were wrong,
yeah.
and come back stronger the next time. And hopefully everybody learns.
Yeah, so I'm definitely gonna maybe prepare some numbers and give him a call back, because he always
Present to
tells
him.
people, hey, if you think of something else, give me a call back. So I might hit him back with that one
Do
with
it.
his own words.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that.
But no, much respect to Forrest. He's definitely extremely knowledgeable. Like, I always trust everything he says. So when he said that, I was like,
It's like
I know he probably is right, but is he? I'm gonna go look it up.
Do you think he went and looked it up himself after that? Like as a person, I
Um,
think you don't see him going
I
to look
don't
into it more.
think so.
it doesn't seem to be like animal rights doesn't seem very high on his
Yeah,
list of
that's
priorities right
yeah.
now. But
No, and
maybe
I'm
maybe
pretty
soon.
sure he was like defending eating meat, so I don't think he went back and been like, hey,
To
you know
like
what?
look
Maybe
into
she
it.
was right.
Maybe I was
Yeah,
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, but
yeah.
I think he was raised farming animals like as a
Okay.
kid. So like he might have got desensitized to the like process even up close. And I kind of understand how that can happen. And my brother is a hunter actually.
Oh,
So but I think he might have recently stopped hunting. I'm not sure, but he sometimes would take his kids hunting. And I just don't think that's a good idea. Like I think it desensitizes
oh,
kids
absolutely.
to the violence.
Yeah, I grew up in the country in Argentina. Like, we had like one store and everything else was just farms. So sometimes we will get milk from someone or meat from someone or vegetables from another person and grains from another person. And it was kind of like eating whatever was available. But then we also had our own a few animals. We had horses, chickens, pig, lots of dogs, cats. Well, okay, I think one thing that may have desensitized me was that we lived literally next to a chicken farm, and so it was completely normal for me. My brother actually worked at that chicken farm for quite a long time, and he was a teenager. He was maybe like 15 or so, because over there it was just what teenagers did. They just had to go to work hard at this type of places, and so I think that was definitely one of the things that for us probably made it normalized, that chicken are just there for eggs and meat. And yeah, so it's definitely something that has to be, you have to help your mind break that connection. And sometimes it doesn't happen overnight, sometimes it happens overnight for certain people. And so yeah, I think that's the the great thing about what we just discussed today about the different methods that we can use
Yeah.
to help. And I really, really hope that this conversation has helps people understand that vegans are not some crazy extreme person, that we are like
Yeah,
people
it's
who feel deeply about a cause.
Yeah, and sometimes like those crazy loud protests get media coverage. That's why we do them a lot of times, is to get a whole bunch of people thinking about the issue, at least on a surface level, so that they then want to learn more. They're like, even if they're talking shit about us, like, oh, those stupid vegans, well, the person they're talking to might be like, I don't know, man, like maybe the vegans are right. Like, what's the difference between a dog and a pig? Like, and or I saw a slaughter video earlier and it was pretty messed up, maybe the vegans are right, so it generates a discussion. And then we also ask that question about like, well, we protest for humans, why not animals, when we're all animals and they're suffering like other individuals, and everybody deserves a voice.
So we have a commenter in the chat on the side. It made me think about
Uh,
how
a troll, I think.
maybe
Maybe.
you can connect meat to masculinity. Like, ooh, I eat a big steak, so I'm strong and I could kick your ass. But
We were just
y'all were
talking
just talking
about
about the bodybuilders,
bodybuilders.
like this guy says this one meat powered man could easily destroy all you plant powered twinks. It's like that's such an
Oh,
ignorant statement. It's like,
And then he says, or he's pointing out our estrogenic faces, which means he's calling us all women.
oh man. So that made me
And
think.
apparently, he thinks calling someone a woman is an insult.
Say,
Uh,
ooh.
yeah, not very nice.
anyway,
Yeah, we'll just try to be patient and understanding,
Yeah, it's
and
okay.
we'll if that don't work, we'll show up at his house with our protest signs.
Start chanting.
and compassion, man. Like, what is so wrong with being compassionate, right? Like, what is it? Why is it seen as a weakness to be
Don't show
compassionate
compassion.
towards other
Don't be like a
non-human
woman. Don't
animals?
show compassion. It's like
Yeah,
I'm a masculine. It's like I don't have to show compassion. That's
yeah. But anyways, we're
horrible.
nearing almost 2 hours. Do you have anything else that
Shoot.
you guys would like to add, or any other comments?
Joey,
No,
Finishing.
I'm good. I'm gonna tell Chase I am gonna try. I'm gonna do my best to try to change my ways. And
cool.
not. I'm not gonna be a baby about it. I will try to maybe just like cut some things off and go with it and just see if I still live.
Yeah, that sounds good, man. Don't be an excusitarian.
All right, man. All right, I like
and,
that.
I like that term.
and maybe try think of it like this, like that 3 week thing I said, just like imagine, like you're gonna go vegan for your whole life because that's the right thing to do, but this next 3 weeks is gonna be your easy, like, but difficult, like, a kind of trial period where you're still gonna do it anyways, but 3 weeks is nothing. You can easily do 3 weeks, can't you? And
Yeah,
by
and I
the
get
time
through
that three
that.
weeks is up, you'll be like, okay, I got a handle on this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and
like
maybe you'll
these.
discover some like really good foods that you didn't know about, that you
It's
didn't know you
true. It's
like.
true. I need to try to open my palate. I guess I
Like,
would say.
okay, so Joe hates mushrooms. Okay, like
Me too.
he does not like mushrooms. You don't like them either.
No.
Oh man, I would eat them every day pretty much if I could.
She could eat. I have to go to the
Oh
Asia
yeah.
market and I'll come
Oh,
home with
he'll
like
buy
a
like.
basket full of mushrooms for her. Like ever kind of like I don't know, 6 different variants. It's
But
like
there's like so many different varieties. Like I feel like the button mushrooms that you see like regularly at the grocery store. I don't really. I'm not a big fan of those. I'll buy them sometimes because they're cheaper. But like the Asian grocery store has like some other ones that are really a lot harder texture, like more firm. So when you cook them in certain ways, like in the air fryer, or sometimes I'll bread them just like you would bread chicken, like in a wet batter, and then breadcrumbs, and then you deep fry it. Yeah, it's not that healthy, but it's deep fried, so it's crispy. Like the first time I tried it, I think it was oyster mushrooms. No, it wasn't oyster. Uh, anyways, I'm blanking on what type it was, but like there was this specific type to where you break it up and it looks just like chicken,
Oh
and
yeah.
you try it and it's just like chicken. Like you can't really tell the difference. But yeah, so I found that I love it. So
Hmm.
it's like one of those things that you're like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna try it, and if I like
Yeah,
it, I
maybe
like
if
it.
you
If
keep
I
it
don't, I
right.
don't. All right.
Okay, cool.
So everybody that's listening, you can find Chase Avier on YouTube
Okay,
and
cool.
Facebook.
But
What's up? Were you gonna say something?
Instagram, and
Oh,
yeah,
Instagram.
definitely you can follow me on Instagram as well. But on my YouTube channel, I have a playlist. You know, on YouTube channels, you can hit the little playlist button that the person has. And I have a playlist called My Top 30 Videos. And people can go there and hit my top 30 videos. And, you know, they're usually pretty short videos. Most of them are just a couple minutes long or something. But if you want to see videos of me protesting or rescuing animals from slaughterhouses, and sometimes, like, I've led a march of 1,000 vegans through the streets of San Francisco
Wow,
with
nice,
drums
nice.
banging and all that. It was a lot of fun. And then sometimes I'll just do a protest by myself, where I'm just like holding the camera and just go confront someplace, you know. And so that's a lot of fun. Or I do debates and some vegan music, you know, and stuff. So check out my YouTube.
Oh, I saw you singing at one of the protests. Yeah, that was awesome. That was really cool. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, I'm gonna go check out some of your stuff, Chase. I haven't. I'll admit I haven't watched any of your stuff, so I'm gonna go subscribe and
Awesome.
check it out.
You know what? Maybe Joe and I will do a video, just the two of us, when we'll like review your stuff and show people what they can do too.
Oh no, did Chase freeze up again?
Yeah, I think the camera keeps freezing up, so I guess we're gonna. Um,
I'm not sure if he could even still hear us. I think he actually lagged out.
yeah, I think
Oh no,
so.
we
All
lost
right,
Chase.
so I'm gonna do the outro real quick, and yeah, because unfortunately he's it looks like he dropped out
Yeah, if he
accidentally.
comes back
Yeah.
on, we'll jump him back into the live. But yeah, I think we were just about to finish up. It was a good show. I really enjoyed talking to him, and he actually might get me to try this out. If I do, I guess we can document this journey so everybody can see if I survive.
Sheldon say that was a good picture to freeze on when
It
he
was. He had his fist up. It
the
was
protest time. Yeah,
perfect.
that was cool. I see he's there, but I don't know if. Yeah, I don't think it's working. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah,
It was a great show. Like you said, it was a really, really good show. It made me think. I think it made you think, and hopefully it made other people think as well. And I think that at the heart of all of this is pretty simple. Like Chase mentioned, suffering matters, and it doesn't really matter if the one suffering looks like humans or speaks like humans or lives like humans. What matters is that they also feel and they also hurt, right? And I think, especially in atheist spaces, we challenge myths and about gods, about governments, about biology, about what we're told is normal. And so, in fighting to align our values with truth or reason or justice, we should do the same. We shouldn't let that journey end right there with humans, right? Like the world tells us to be tough and to laugh at the suffering that we cause to animals because it's tradition or because it's necessary. Like I said earlier, like some people think that it's necessary for humans, um, but we know better now, right? So we can speak against the if we often talk about the Bible, right? Like we talk about the sacrifices of animals, like that they did. Like we talked about this the other day with Greg on the show, and they used to do it as a justification because it was a tradition, because they were given to their gods, because it was what their god asked. And we now look at that and we look back at these animal sacrifices and we're like, no, that wasn't right, and we no longer do it. So maybe the most radical thing we can do, that we can, humans can do, is to live in a way that causes the least amount of harm possible, that we can, how we are able to, right? And not just to humans, but also to non-human animals. And we can choose to be kind, even if it's inconvenient. So I don't know, open up your hearts.
Yeah, no,
Maybe.
I think
Yeah. So
you said it well. I mean, that's exactly how we need to look at it,
yeah.
and try to be more compassionate. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
realize
To,
that animals have feelings too. I mean, they're alive. And like Chase said earlier, like would you want to have your throat slit, or it's like have your life taken without your permission, like someone decides that? I mean,
yeah. And that's what
that's pretty.
we do with animals pretty much every
Yeah,
day.
we
Yeah.
do. But
Yeah.
again, I think we need to figure out how to bring down that wall to make people connect that pain to what they're eating.
What's on their plate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to what's on their
Yeah.
plate. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
For
until
sure.
we can do that, most people are not going to care about it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, anyway, guys, thank you for hearing us talk about all these hard questions, listening to us. And don't forget to like, to subscribe, and maybe imagine a better way to human.
Y'all have a good evening. Thanks for watching.
Bye, everybody.